my first knee-jerk reaction is like, we need to fire them both. It's very difficult for me to argue about taking someone's livelihood away. When I make a knee-jerk reaction like that, they need to be fired. I need to take a pause and be like, well, is that an appropriate reaction? If I owned ACR, I would probably get rid of both of them. That's it's easy for me to say when it's not my decision to make.
The interview by PokerOrg.
Welcome to PokerOrg's The Interview. Today is someone I've been looking forward to talking with a long time, and we've worked with each other over the years, the last 20 years, Mr. Chris Moneymaker. Now, Mr. Moneymaker, Chris won the 2003 WSOP main event for $2.5 million. Last year, he won a Triton event for $903,000. And the year before that, he won over $2 million for fifth place in a Triton invitation. Now, Chris has been one of the most loved and respected ambassadors for the game for the longest time. Everybody has a great time with Chris when they talk with him. Now, I love Chris the most for the needling he does with Jeff Platt, because Jeff and I go back and forth. But Chris's love language is if he picks on you, he must love you. So welcome to the interview, Chris.
Good to be here, Craig. And you said you had nice things to say about me. I didn't believe it, but that was about the nicest anybody said things about me for the last 20 years. So I appreciate that.
I don't believe it. You really are somebody that I've always thought brought a lot of love and passion and fun to the game. And I do want to talk about some of that because it had to be annoying at times. But like I see some movie stars like Keanu Reeves dealing with people coming up to him all the time, grabbing him, and being cordial to his fans. And most every time I've ever seen you in that regard, you seem to be a gentleman and deal with it very well. But I wanted to talk. Did you ever expect? I watched the video that we did with Lee Jones. The interview was a great interview talking about your upbringing and working as an accountant in many different jobs, including Enron, which is pretty funny. I didn't know that. What has been, if any, the burden that you carried that turned poker into the moneymaker boom or the moneymaker effect? Has there been any burden on your shoulders of I'm sure you never expected anything like this, of course, but what has it been affected you as a person and your game overall over the last 20 years?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a burden.
Yeah.
It's more of a blessing. The biggest kind of hurdle that I had over the last 20 years was, getting used to people playing me differently, calling me down a lot lighter, trying to bluff me more. I got to play. It's weird. For 10 years, I had to play a little bit different than everybody else to adjust for it. And I probably adjusted too much at different times. I would say over the last 5 years, I've played a little bit more standard. I think that the poker economy has evolved, or the poker population's evolved so much now that, they've played with enough pros, whether it be, Daniel, Helmuth, whatever, that there aren't as many people taking shots and needing the story, because there are just a lot more poker personalities out there that people have the opportunities to play against. 10 years ago, there was 5, 6, 7 pros that, you could really feasibly get in a game with, have a story. And now, you have players, that are coming up through YouTube, like Rampage and Brad Owen and some of these guys that, didn't exist because of, we didn't have YouTube back then, or, social media, things like that. So there's more and more people that are being able to play against known players, and that just makes it to where people aren't taking as many shots at me. People aren't playing as polarized against me. They still play polarized against me more than most. I think me and Helmuth have talked about it in the past, how, people generally play us a little bit differently. And I think that's always going to be the case a little bit. But the biggest burden playing wise for me was trying to adjust to that. And honestly, people think that I bluff all the time. I'm actually, I don't want to let it out there too much, but I don't bluff that much because people generally call me. So I'm very active on the table, but when the money goes in, I generally have it. But don't tell
Well,
anybody
you
that.
talked about it. Well, we won't. We'll like cut this part out.
Perfect.
But you talked about in the video. What's that?
I said perfect.
Yeah. You talked about in the video with Lee that back then during the main event, the first 3 days you played rather standard. Then you figured out that most people were playing pretty much face up, and that you started check raising and using that strategy. And then I'm curious what kind of study did you put in? Because you said, hey, people didn't respect my game in the beginning. They watched me and just really thought I wasn't very good. And of course, that I'm the kind of person, if someone told me that, I'm going to try even harder. Talk about the evolution of your study of the game for me, and how this affected your mindset and your will. You could have just stopped and not gone forward, but instead you dug in. You must have done some study or some mentoring with people and talked to other players, like all players do, to evolve your game to where it is now. And then solvers came along, so I'm curious about your evolution there.
Yeah. Well, I've never used solvers like maybe they're easier now, but when I first started looking into solvers, when solvers were first coming out, um, it maybe I'm not that bright. I used to be a very tech savvy guy back when I was 2000s 2010, but I guess now where we are now, I'm like the least tech savvy guy. So when solvers first came out, it felt like you had to have like an instruction manual that you would take months to go through to figure out how to even do the inputs. So solvers is something I really never got into. Um, I started studying ranges and just different strategies, talking with different pros, getting feedback. I've had several different coaches throughout my career, and pick their brain what's going on in the current ecosystem of poker, whatever that is. um, but to be honest, really what it comes down to is, while I didn't use solvers and I didn't ever get into that world, once you understand the ranges pre-flop and you understand what people are doing, you can adjust your game pretty effectively, um, to counterbalance a lot of the stuff that they're doing, and figuring out who knows ranges. You watch and see, what someone's opening up under the gun, what someone's opening up in the cutoff. Are they in line with what a quote unquote solver or a pre-flop range should be? And then you can make adjustments. It's a lot easier, honestly, for me, um, to make adjustments, because I'm not set in a bubble, if you will, of well, the solver tells me I need to do this percentage of time, or that this percentage of the time. I'm kind
Mhm.
of, my mind is free to do whatever the hell I want in a situation where I think it's right. You know, you, there was
Right.
a situation down in Uruguay where I won the tournament down there last year, and we were six-handed, and I pick up 9-10 suited, and I just muck. And like the three hands later, I get eight deuce offsuit and I move all in. Um, there's, reasons I did that, mostly because I had information on the table. But I also kind of knew how my opponents were playing as well. Um,
Mhm.
and if you're stuck in a sim, you're just never like, those plays just don't exist. I mean, there's not a sim in the world that tells you to fold 9-10 suited, on the button or on the cutoff, five-handed, as deep as we were. I don't think. I mean, hell, again, I don't run sims, but I would assume 9-10 suited is pretty much a raise in all situations there. And then eight deuce offsuit. I don't think there are many sims that are going to tell you to raise, go all in, or whatever. So I like where my game is at, and the fact that I understand what my opponents are doing. I understand my opponent's ranges, and I can make better adjustments than most. Um, and I can, honestly, I've only met one person, maybe two people, that I feel like are better at reading people and reading situations than myself.
Mhm.
And one player knows the fundamentals, and is very, very good. And he's been a teacher of mine. And I highly respect his game. He's probably one of the few people that I really, really don't ever want to sit with. And then there's another guy that his reading is off the charts, but his fundamentals are terrible. Um, Most people could probably guess who that is. Um, so my ability to read situations and read people really help. And so, while I haven't studied as much as, the Triton guys or the top level guys, I have enough knowledge to know where my opponents are and what their ranges should be. And that's really what I studied is, what are my opponents opening with? What are my opponents three betting with? What are they four betting with?
Mm-hmm.
What happens on, there's only so many flops that you have you know paired flops, uh monotone, rainbow flops. There's what, seven or eight different kind of board textures. And if you have a basic grasp of, what your opponents are doing and how your range matches up with those board textures, uh poker is a very complex game, but it's actually you can break it down pretty simply. So you just generally know that, if someone is raising under the gun and the flop comes 3 4 7, 3 4 5, like, you know instinctively, that they're not going to have their range is not going to hit that flop very often. And if you're calling out of the
Right.
big blind, you have a, more of a range advantage of on that board. And it's just identifying, small stuff like that, knowing how to capitalize and knowing who to capitalize against. There are some opponents that, you know you just never bluff. There's some opponents that you always bluff. um, and I think the success that I've had recently, um, obviously, being that it's a game of poker and it's a game of luck, I mean, the variance has been on my side in the last year and a half. I mean, I got down to one big blind in the Triton event that I won. So, I mean, obviously, I got very fortunate to run that back up. At certain points, you just start running good. And then when you start running good, you start making good decisions. And it just seems like everything works out. You'll go
Right.
through spans in poker where, you know, you can't win a flip, you can't win an all in, and all of a sudden you look down at your game and you're raising queen deuce offsuit under the gun for no reason, and you're just like, what the hell am I doing? Um,
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the way for everybody, but that is the way it is for me. That I'll wake up and be like, dude, what the hell? But I've learned over the 20 years that there are things that I do that is unique to me that I can tell when I'm not playing my best poker. And
Mm.
I'll give you an example. One of the biggest tells for myself is if I'm playing really good poker, I'm waiting for my turn to look at my cards. I'm observing the table. I'm taking in information, and then I'm looking at my cards. When I get dealt my cards and I immediately pick them up and look at them, and I'm like very anxious to see my cards, I'm not playing my best poker. And I've learned that over the course of the last 20 years of, I know, hey, I'm picking up, looking at my cards way too fast. I'm not playing my A game. So I know at that point, I have a couple choices. I can either refocus and try to play my A game, or I know there are certain days that, like, I'm just screwed. Like, first of all, what Helmuth said about the WSOP being so long and it favoring the younger generation. It does. It's true. I mean, what we do is not difficult, sitting at a poker table and sitting there all day, but mentally it does get very tiring. And there are times, especially now as I've gotten older, where I've found that I just can't refocus myself. I'll get on my iPad, I'll get on my phone, try to clear my head, try to get recentered to where I'm playing really good poker. Um, and I just can't find it. I can't get into the spot where I'm seeing the stuff at the tables. I'm in the moment, and I can read situations, and I know what my, like, when I'm playing really well, I know what all my opponents are generally have when they play their hands. I can pretty much nail down their ranges pretty well. Um, but there'll be days where, honestly, I think you have pocket aces and you have seven deuce. Like, I'm just so far off, and there's just no getting it back. So
Right.
I've learned, and I'm sure, other older players and Helmuth, whatever, you kind of go into autopilot mode where, I stop trying to be creative. I stop trying to play really good poker, and I just try to survive the day. Like, I'm playing, my ranges get super tight. I'm not really looking to play a lot of post flop. I'm three betting a lot more pre flop. Uh, I'm trying to, I know my pre flop ranges are pretty easy. Like, I don't have to have a ton of focus for that. But the problem is, usually when I have my pre-flop ranges, I have all my tells going along with it, and I have my instincts and everything else, so I can three bet more effectively or call more effectively. When I don't have any of that, it's just autopilot. I try to get through the day. Hey, I've got ace jack here. I'm gonna try to win the pot immediately and not really try to draw this out, because my mental state is just not there to try and play post flop and try to outthink somebody. And that just, I don't know if it's age or what, but I found myself where, there will be times that I can't get it, and I just try to get through the day.
I think that's normal. Even I've talked to pro golfers the same way. Some days you just don't have the rhythm, and you just try to get through the round. You brought up a couple of topics I want from what you just shared. Does it change any when you're facing some of the wizards like a Chidwick or Foxen in a big Triton event? Those kind of guys. How do you approach those tables? Maybe differently than the WSOP main event.
Well, I mean, those, honestly, it's funny because playing those guys, I honestly find it's easier to play those guys than it is to play the randoms at the WSOP. The good thing against playing against those guys is their ranges are going to be pretty defined. Like, you're going to know what their pre-flop ranges are. They don't really deviate too far from what the GTO solver is going to say,
Hmm.
or what the ranges should be. Like, you're not going to just wake up randomly and be surprised by 8-4 offsuit being 3 bet 4 bet in your face. Um, it's going to be, their play is very, very strong, very, very difficult, but at the same time, it's the same type play that you would see at the higher buy-ins online. Like, when you're playing a 1K on ACR, you're seeing the same kind of strict pre-flop ranges and the same type of plays. So when you're used to seeing that, it's actually not as hard to play against. It's harder to play against the guys that are just really wildly out there doing just things that don't make sense. People always say, "Well, I've got the best table ever," at the World Series of Poker or whatever, and then they bust 2 hours later because, you know, guys did something stupid. Well, yeah, guys do something stupid because you're at the best table ever, but then obviously guys doing something stupid is what busts you a lot of times.
Right.
So, sometimes it's actually, you're not getting free chips from guys like Chidwick and those guys. They're never going to give, every chip is going to be a hard fought battle, and it's going to be tough. Um, but you're also not going to be put in the blender as often as you are against some random wild card making these just audacious bluffs. So, while it is difficult to play against these guys, they are very skilled, they're very knowledgeable in the game. I find it more difficult to play against guys that are very um, more street poker. I play a little bit more street poker, I guess. So I find it a
Hmm.
little bit more difficult to play against those guys.
Well, were you playing in the events that Gambledore was winning and doing well in? Were you there during that series? And what did you think of his play? Because he certainly shook those guys up.
I was not at the event, and I didn't watch a single hand that he played. A little secret, I don't watch any poker. Like, I play enough poker that I don't really, I don't think I've ever watched a hand of poker that I wasn't a part of, that I wanted to go back and see what my opponent has, or look and see if I made the right decisions in a couple spots. I don't watch poker for enjoyment. I don't watch poker to study, because Unfortunately, I tried in the past to look back and see, do research on my opponents or whatever, like Daniel claims that he does. Um, the camera doesn't stay on your opponents long enough in the most crucial times to really pick up anything. I mean, where I pick up my information, the camera's never really looking at them. So, and
Right.
you can't really tell the camera operator, hey, go back and watch, watch this part. Um, so it's very frustrating if you're trying to learn about your opponent's tendencies and tells per se, watching it on TV. The camera's angles aren't great, and then again, it's not focused on the things that I would focus on.
Right.
So I've really never seen a whole lot of value in me watching players play too much. So I mean, I've never seen the guy that you're speaking of. I know who you're talking about because of his unique look, and
Yeah.
there's really only one guy that you can say that name, and it'll be like, okay, yeah, that. Like if you had told me some other guy, I probably would have no clue you're talking about. But the guy does look like Gandalf, so I do know who he is. But I've never seen a single hand that he's played or how any of the stuff went down. I know he did really well at a Triton, but I will say that if you look at the Tritons, like ACR has sent probably 20 people to different Triton events, and
Yeah.
every single one of them has had success. It seems like every new player that goes out to Triton has success in Triton. Um, and why is that? One, obviously, it's just run good. Part of it, it's very small sample size. But I do believe that, excuse me, all these guys at Triton are so used to playing with the same style, with the same um, type people, that when you get a wild card in there, it does throw a monkey wrench into it. And these wild cards, are, you know, doing different things that they're just not used to. Again, most of these guys, they don't, outside of maybe the World Series main event, they generally aren't going down and playing a bunch of 1Ks and 2Ks and 1500s, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I go play the Moneymaker Tour events. I go play a bunch of random events. I just got back from Uruguay playing against some of the most unique players you'll ever play against in the world. Um, I'm used to playing against a very wild or just a very different style of player. Like there's not one static player that I'm always playing against. And when you play Tritons, now granted there are VIPs and there are people that do play different styles, don't get me wrong, but
Right.
for the pros, they're pretty much all playing the same type of poker. Now they'll approach the game differently. They'll three bet, with the sims and whatnot. They all vary a little bit based on their frequencies and what they're doing. But at the end of the day, what makes them so great is they're so studied in the game that they don't make mistakes. But by them not making mistakes, it makes them more predictable. And
Mhm.
um, there's ways to, you know, defend against that, if you will. And some of these guys that are playing unpredictable can build up stacks and have success.
Of course. It's been interesting. Do you plan to play more Triton high rollers in the future?
Yeah, I plan on going. So I had really good success in Montenegro, and so I plan. I think that's the next stop. I think it's going to be like in April and May. I plan on going to Montenegro at that time. It really kind of depends. I've got a Montreal event coming up for the Moneymaker Tour at the same time, so I got to see how it kind of fits in the schedule. I would say that Moneymaker Tour stops are the priority for me when it comes to stops. Um, First, and then after that, ACR stops, and then finally it would be Tritons. So, like for example, I could have gone. Jeju is just now starting. I think it starts up maybe today.
Hmm.
Um, but I chose to go to Uruguay. ACR, I just won the tournament down there, so they asked me if I would go down there and kind of defend my title, if you will. So I went down there instead of going out to Jeju. And to be perfectly honest, looking at the flights to Jeju, my flights to Uruguay were such a nightmare. I'm glad I didn't do Jeju. I mean, it's 30 hours, to get over there, and yeah, it's just that's tough, especially again as you get older. Like I came home and I was just drained. I think I got a little sick and I got food poisoning my last day. Talk about not wanting. Like I was playing the super high roller down in Uruguay, and I went from playing really well to like just not giving a fuck. Like when you get food poisoning, it's amazing how little you give a crap about your hands anymore. You just want to be in the bathroom and be on the floor, and yeah, it was. I was happy to bust that event. And it's really sad. You hate playing a poker tournament. I've only played two poker tournaments that I can remember where I just couldn't wait to bust. One, I had food poisoning. There was another one a long time ago in London with Poker Stars where I had a migraine and like it hurt my head so bad. Like I could not play. I actually left the tournament for like 6 hours and came back and I was still in so much pain. I was like sick from the migraine. I just wanted to bust. So,
I get it. So talking about any more you want to say about, we talked about this maybe some last year, listening to Helmy talk about It's a Young Man's Game, and he happened to call me up that evening and say, hey, you want this story? I'm not going to play in the main event. I said, of course I do. And he was gracious enough to talk to me and send us that video for PokerOrg. But how obviously you have a strong will. You've kept with the game, you studied the game, you've been very successful, and one of the best ambassadors in the history of the game, I think. So how do you work on your own, maybe some tips to the older crowd to work on your mindset, your calmness at the table? You also have a great way about yourself, sense of humor. Do you have anything that you've learned along the way, like tips of how you keep your mind in the game? Besides, you talked about how when you're in flow, you obviously play better. A player might focus on the breathing, like Tommy Angelo talks about. Well, what kind of things do you would share with the guys that are getting older in their 50s and 60s to play?
really, the most important thing that you could ever do is there's a new product out called Moneymaker coffee. I would go and buy as much Moneymaker coffee as you possibly can. That will get you over the edge and let you survive in tournaments and thrive. No, but in all seriousness, as you do get older, again, what we do is not tough. I mean, we're sitting at a table, and but the days are long, and if you do make one mistake, you could be finished. So, what do I do to keep myself, kind of in the zone? I always, I do get massages quite a bit at the table. Massage. You get a good massage therapist working on you. It keeps you loose. It keeps you ready for the long day. I generally come into the day. My plan when I come in is the night before. It's obviously very crucial. Sleep is the most important thing a poker player can get. I mean, if you're well rested, you
Yeah.
can make better decisions, you can last longer, you can do things. So when I come into, especially of a day one of an event, and I think Helmuth owns the patent on this, is I don't set my alarm. I sleep till I get up. You miss some early levels of day one events. It's not the end of the world. Like I've always told people, I never want to miss the first hand of the World Series of Poker main event. You generally don't. It's the softest 10K you'll ever play. Um, and I still am in that boat where I don't want to miss a hand. But if I'm tired and I don't want to get up, then yeah, no, I'm sleeping. Like I've learned that sleep is more important than being there for hand number one. So, Helmuth won't show up for traditionally till the end of late reg. Well, I don't agree with that. I mean, I know why he does it, but
Mhm.
I don't think that's the proper strategy in a field full of people that have won satellites and home game guys and people that generally aren't playing 10Ks. Um, I think somewhere in the middle is perfectly fine, but you want to make sure that you get enough sleep. And then in the morning when you get up, you got to go to the gym. I mean, it's imperative for me. I've learned that I play good poker every morning. I go to the gym. Now I don't have to do a ton in the gym. I can uh, just lift weights for 15 minutes. I can get on a treadmill. I got to get my blood pumping. I got to get everything moving. That's really important. Then I generally eat a good sized breakfast. I eat something that will hopefully sustain me for the entire day. I generally don't eat throughout the tournament day. I'll snack on small stuff, but there's no big meals. There's no, um, you know, sedating my body to where I'm getting tired.
Right.
Um, I drink a lot of water. I do mix in Red Bulls, which is not really desired, but I need caffeine. So, I make sure that throughout the day, every time that I start playing poker, I don't really get my massages till later on in the afternoon. I go for a couple levels. Um, Usually in the morning sessions, I'm usually fine. It's really the afternoon and after dinner or getting late in the day. It's when you know the older generation, we start to fade. I guess we get
Right.
tired. Our decisions aren't as crisp, and again, that's why Helmuth shows up late, and that's why he also doesn't want to play a day four where he has to start at noon and play till midnight. Um, but if you come in and the first two levels, 4 hours. You just you don't get massages, you don't do anything, you're just playing. But what you're doing is during the breaks, and this is tough for people like Helmut too, is when you go on breaks during the World Series of Poker, and this is something that you know select few people deal with, is you don't really get a break. Like you're hounded during the break, which is it's great having fans. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you don't get that 15-minute break that everybody else gets because someone wants your ear, someone wants a photograph, someone wants something. Now, granted, there's not many people that have to deal with that. And so, if you don't deal with that, then during that 15-minute break, you need to be stretching. You need to be, either breathing exercises. I like stretching personally. I really like stretching my lower body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just getting the blood flowing. I think that helps throughout the day. You know, Helmuth again is probably more unique. Helmuth and Daniel are probably more unique than anybody else on the planet. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And the fact that like I can take a break and I'll take a couple photos and do some signatures. I'll do some stuff. But like those guys are swamped. Like when they go away from the table, everybody's pulling at them from every different direction. They're probably the only two players out there that are like that, and so they never really get a break. So I understand where Helmuth is coming from, especially at somewhere like the main event, to where again he can't really walk without getting you know fans coming up to him wanting pictures and autographs and everything else all the time. Um, do I think he skips the main event? Not a chance in hell. He's playing the main event.
I was going to
Um,
ask you, are you
yeah.
disappointed he won't be there in some ways? And what advice would you give him? I wouldn't, some pep talk or something. I agree with you. I think he's going to play. Matt Savage wants to have a, polymarker or a bet on the line here.
Oh,
But
dude, if you
you're,
if you gave me a line, like I would put Phil playing at like minus 400, and I would still bet he plays. Like he'll probably register late day two, the very latest you can ever register. But first of all, he's not going to miss his entrance. Like he loves that attention. He loves that entrance that he does. He's done it for God, how many years now? He's not going to just not do that. He
yeah,
loves having the eyeballs on him, so he's not going to give that up. So first of all, he'll pay $10,000 just to have his entrance, and then he's not going to pass up. He's a poker player and every poker player's dream is to win that event. So as much as he complains about it, and he probably won't win it, um, he'll be there and he'll be
yeah,
playing. I would bet my entire fortune on it. Unless something really random happens, he's playing that event.
yeah. Um, I wanted to talk about, so go back a couple things, and then I'm going to jump to some of the stuff that's going on currently. It's a little wild. We talked about it before we started taping. How does it feel? I have a lot of the players I've talked to since I started about 20 years ago, writing a few years after you won the main event. And many of the young guys that are now superstars in the game, the Brain Kennys, the Tom Dwans, the Chance Corneth, Alex Foxens, all started about 20 years ago when you did what you did. How does it feel like to be an inspiration of all those young players and how they've taken the game to a whole different level with what they've brought to it? I mean, obviously, you've probably talked to many of these great players, but the Bonomos, these guys are $150-60 million. It's crazy since they were inspired by you watching on ESPN.
I mean, that's one of the biggest joys I have is seeing that, the game where it was, people don't understand how you couldn't find poker games like it. You couldn't go play a tournament even if you wanted to. Tournaments just didn't exist. It was very hard to find a 10K, much less there was no such thing as a daily, uh, you know, casino daily tournament. It's just mind blowing the difference between what poker was to what it is today. And the fact that people have the opportunities now to make a living doing this. Anything from playing the game to dealing it to being a tournament director, being a reporter, being a cameraman. There are so many different venues that poker provides income and provides jobs that were just non-existent in '03. So that is a huge source of pride. People ask me a lot about the negative sides, poker ruining someone's life and being negative. And um, the thing I will say is if someone has a gambling problem, they're generally not going to go into poker. Poker is a very slow burn. It's not an instant gratification game. Most people that have gambling problems are going to have vices that are a lot more immediate, horse racing or blackjack or sports or whatever it is, something a little bit more immediate. Poker is not really suited well for someone that's a degenerate because it is very slow.
Right.
Now, these guys that have gone on and since I've won, taken the game and transformed it and turned it into what it is today, because again the game today is not really, we all get two cards, we've always gotten two cards, but what people do with two cards today is mind-blowing to what people were doing with two cards 20 years ago. And these guys that took a lead, like Chance, for example, who's has one of the best coaching sites out there. And what they've done to evolve this game is really incredible. And I don't know how much more evolution the game has as far as the play.
Right.
Um, with solvers and everything else, like I don't know how much more we can improve on the actual play of the game, but it really is truly incredible to see. Um, where the game was, where the game is, and to know that I played a small part in that it's kind of it is very surreal. And to have acquaintances, friends, and know that these players that have these lifestyles and these jobs
Mhm.
because of something that I accomplished potentially way back in the day, it's very humbling, very rewarding, and I mean it's just obviously pretty awesome. Um, so yeah, I mean it does bring a very big smile on my face when I see someone like Chance um, do what he's doing, and I think he's actually going out to Triton for his first time. I know another good friend of
Yeah.
mine, Calvin Anderson's, heading to Triton, out to Jeju. That he's playing his first Triton event right now. These are all guys that I've turned into crushers that they might be selling French fries at McDonald's if it wasn't for me. So I
I
mean,
think Chance
Chance.
is rather charming. He would find a job maybe at a higher end fast food place, but I like Chance a lot.
I
Um,
don't know. He definitely seems more of a McDonald's guy to me. But
I don't think he's eating McDonald's, but he talks about training, getting ready for the World Series. Um,
yeah, but
so
he's just not good enough. Like we play last longers every year, me and him, and it's weird because every time I play last longer with him, like I do very well, but he just seems to do
Uh-huh.
very well as well. Like he gets really lucky. So,
Oh
um,
yeah,
but he never
just like
wins. So whatever.
he
It's
never wins.
I feel sorry for him, but
Poor guy. Always
yeah,
makes a couple of million the first couple of weeks of the World Series, and then just moves on.
yeah. He
Um,
just punts it during the main event. He can't make it past like day 6. It's really
well, when
sad.
he's got like playing a guy like Rigby, he just can't handle it. So, talk a bit about your anyway. I was thinking about what you just shared, and I probably wouldn't have a job if it wasn't for you. But so thank you, Chris. So thank you, Chris. I watched those ESPN events and just fell into asking Card Player if I could write an article for them, and this turned into this 20 years later. So, definitely, I appreciate you, and you've been very humble and generous in what you've given to all of us in the game, and I thank you for that. So, and my bank account thanks you. So, uh,
I
talk a
do
bit
what I
about
can.
you definitely do. Any when you said that, I was thinking about any small regrets along the way that maybe you would have done something differently, or you're happy the way it all flowed and played out. You shared a lot in the video with Lee, which was very. I mean, you were just straightforward about everything, all your issues, your jobs, the when you were drinking beer and sports betting and all those. Any other things along the way that maybe you regret a little bit that you think you could have done differently?
I mean, again, there's always things you can do different. Like looking
Right.
back, I mean, obviously, you know, I would have bought more Bitcoin or whatever it is. Like there's always something you do different that you could have done smarter. I shouldn't have got into NFTs. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. It's funny because I just did an interview recently about if you could go back in time and tell yourself anything, if you could give yourself advice, what would it be? And I basically, it's kind of weird in the fact that I wouldn't want to go back and give myself advice. Because if I did that, um, you know, first of all, the advice would literally just be buy Bitcoin, a lot of Bitcoin, do nothing but buy Bitcoin. But if I did that, there's no telling where my life would be. Like, I don't know, if I had all the Bitcoin, like, where does that put my life? Like, um, I'm very, very, very happy where I am. I like um, everything in my life. I like the unknown. I like I don't want to call it struggle because it's not a struggle by any stretch, but I like the fact that I'm still wanting to play poker. I have a
Right.
desire to play poker. I don't need to play poker. I want to. Um, and a lot of my decisions throughout my life, granted, they've not been perfect by any stretch. Um, I always like the one thing I always try to do is make the best decision I know how and try to be the most moral person I can. And that's about the best thing I can do. But I will
Mhm.
say that it's very easy to do that when you're comfortable.
Right.
It is very easy to make the best decision and very easy to take the quote unquote moral high ground when your family is provided for and you have the luxury to do so. So, and that's been my pretty much my entire career. Um, so while I've made mistakes, I wouldn't go back and change any of those because I feel like hopefully I've learned from them and I won't repeat those. And um, again, I kind of like the unknown. I wouldn't want to know that Bitcoin is going to go to $1 million. I wouldn't want to know that, um, you know, whatever else might happen. I want this stuff to be kind of an unknown, and I like
Right.
the thrill. Like there's not a whole lot of I don't want to say thrill. If I knew everything that was going to happen, then it just wouldn't be fun.
Right.
I don't want
Wouldn't
to
be a
know when I
mystery.
die. I don't want to know my death date. I don't want to know that stuff. I,
Yeah.
I just I like the unknown.
You've been very, blessed. You've shared that many times, and every time you do interviews and talk a bit about how lucky you are in your life. And one thing, it's a powerful practice that I see that you do. You're very grateful for what's befallen on you, and that is a powerful practice ongoingly. Can you talk a bit about your evolution of leaving PokerStars? You talked about it with Lee, but then you made a deal and took on ACR relationship. Exactly what was the main thing that grabbed your attention to say, hey, PokerStars, I'm going to go with these guys and work with Phil Nagy at that time?
So, you know, PokerStars for 17 years, whatever it was. I know I worked with him for 17 years, but
Okay.
Esai owned the company for 12 of the 17 years, whatever it was. And working with Esai was incredible. Like, there's nothing like being able to pick up the phone and call the CEO, call the owner, and have a conversation and be like, hey, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that. And over time, in the beginning, like Esai listened to some of my advice, listened to some of what I had to say. Over time, we became a very big company, and like my advice was just not sought after anymore, which is perfectly fine. I get it. We had a lot of people that were a lot smarter than me, and but they were just a really great company. And even when they got bigger, they still had the mom and pop feel to it when Esai and them ran it.
We're back with Chris. Chris was in his car, as he says, in his truck, as he usually says he is, but he had some food poisoning coming back from his trip, right? And so you had to go home and take care of business. And now we're back live.
We are live. We're back home. Yeah, unfortunately, um, I had a pretty decent stack in the super high roller. I was doing quite well, and it's funny how you get something like food poisoning and makes you decide that playing poker is not quite as important as you thought it was.
Yeah.
So, but my stomach's been upset since 3 days now. I had a chicken sandwich before I went on with you. It was just a grilled chicken sandwich with nothing on it, very bland. I'm trying to eat a very bland diet, and
Yeah.
it wasn't terrible, but at the same time, I was sitting. There goes my dogs. I'm back home, obviously. Um, yeah, you're sitting there, and all of a sudden, your stomach says that it doesn't like the chicken sandwich. So you listen to your stomach, and so I raced home, and we fired up the home version of this, which should go a lot smoother. I don't have to hold the camera, but as you can see, we'll have um,
Different.
different animals come and join at different times, and they'll be barking, and um, it'll be a lot more noisier here than it would be in my car. That's why I do a lot of the stuff in my car. It's actually quieter.
It's okay. They can drop in and say hi. But so you were talking about your relationship toward the end with Esai, who's a wonderful person in the industry and an icon, and you were working with him, and he was talking. You had a direct relationship with him, and then it segued differently.
Yeah, so it segued into a different company, and I had a good relationship with the company. PokerStars is still a fantastic company, and
Yep.
I would say that the biggest thing for me is, so again, when COVID happened, um, it went from I kind of realized how much I was on the road. I missed a lot of my kids growing up. I put a lot on my wife. I put a lot on um, her taking care of everything while I'm gone. And then I just missed a lot. So when COVID happened, it was one, a wake up call, and two, a opportunity. Um, so I started playing on ACR, and I've always been a really firm believer things happen for a reason, or things are meant to happen. And I'm on ACR, and I'm playing under a hidden name. I signed up, when I signed up on the account, I used my own name, but I signed up using, just like everybody else, some random name. I used a combination of my three kids, Tay, Hey, Will. And so I was Tay, Hey, Will online. No one knew who I was. It was, complete unknown. The only people that anybody knew who I was there was a few people that I had to buy ACR from. I would, send them money and they would send me ACR and vice versa during COVID.
Right.
So there were a few people that knew who I was, but it was a very small circle. Anyway, so I'm playing, and for anybody that doesn't know ACR, they have a big series called the Venom. And during COVID, I was playing the Venom, um, and I ended up final tabling the Venom during COVID. And when you final table the Venom, the CEO of the company, Phil Nagy, calls you personally and congratulates you on your final table and talks to you about payout methods. How we can get you the money Bitcoin super fast. If you need it a different way, we can figure out what works best for you to get your money off the site after you make a big score in the Venom.
Right.
So, anyways, Phil calls me up, and he's like, "Oh, is this who I think it is?" And yeah, it is. And, I signed up for my real name, and he's like, "Oh, it's really cool. You're at our final table, and it would be a lot, obviously, very good press for us if we could, say, hey, Chris Moneymaker made the final table of the Venom." And I'm like, "Yeah, you can't really say that. I'm with PokerStars. I'm not really supposed to even be playing, but being that it is COVID, it's unusual circumstances, but it's still not cool, whatever, to say that you know, I'm playing under a hidden name,
Right.
and I'm playing under a hidden name for a reason. Is that I really don't want people to know that I'm playing on a site outside of PokerStars, which I never normally would have done, except for I physically couldn't do it. So, anyways, he's like, "Yeah, no problem. No one will ever know. It'll be our secret." And so we went and we played the final table, and they sent me the Bitcoin, and that was it. And no one knew. And I was like, "Okay, cool." He kept his word, which was cool. Um, and no one ever knew that I made the final table. Well, we kept that tournament happened in I think it was like August of 2019 or 2020, whenever it was, and I guess it was 2020. And my contract with PokerStars, how it was always phrased was it was a 2-year contract. So every 2 years it was come up for like kind of like an auto renewal, and
Mm-hmm.
it was always kind of just assumed that I would auto resign. Um, but Phil came along, and we kept the conversation going from, he had my number. So he called me, and, we talked, we just rapped on the phone about poker and about what his vision is for ACR and what, his kind of life mantra is. And, you know, it's weird to me because for the few years prior to this, everything that I had ever heard about ACR was it's just terrible. It's the worst site on the planet. Stay away. It's always crashing. It's anytime they have a big guarantee, they're just going to crash the site to whatever. There were all these stories back in the day. But I'm sitting here and I'm talking to this guy, and I'm like, you know what? This guy reminds me a lot of Isai in different ways, but he is just a big poker nerd. Like, he loves poker, and he is trying to build a site similar to what PokerStars was. Like, Isai is his idol. Like, he wants to do everything what Isai did, and he's doing his best to try to emulate what Isai did. And the more I talked to him, is like, we had a lot of similarities when it came to what our visions of poker and what a site would look like.
Mm-hmm.
So in the conversation, we got to a point where he was like, "Well, what would it take for you to leave PokerStars?" And I had been with them for 17 years, and I never really contemplated what that would mean for me, like, or what that would even look like. I had opportunities early on in my career to join Full Tilt and to join um, Party Poker, I think it was, or Paradise. I think it was Party. I had some sites approach me about leaving PokerStars, and I was never interested in leaving Esai and leaving what we were building. But so it just so happened at the same exact time I'm talking with PokerStars as we're coming out of COVID. Um, that I was asking, what is my next 2 years going to look like? Because again, I've been sitting at home, not being able to play online poker on PokerStars, and if I can't play, then I can't really. There's not much value to me within, for the company outside of my name, image,
Right.
likeness, whatever. So, but what does that look like for me going forward? And they're like, well, obviously, and what I had been doing prior to COVID-19 was going up. I would drive 16 hours to New Jersey and play online poker there. Well, they were talking about how Pennsylvania's going live, Michigan's going live, and so they wanted me to spend a lot of time up north in Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. And I was like, so how much time are we talking? And they're like, we can either, they were talking about renting me an apartment, or moving potentially moving my family up there,
Hmm.
to relocate essentially. So I knew coming out of this that I was going to have some decisions to make. And again, I never really got approached by anybody else. And I talked with my wife and I was like, listen, this is kind of what we got. I have a new site that's interested in me. Um, I think the travel would be less. I can play from home. Um, and first of all, the one thing that I made sure when I signed on with ACR, I had a couple requirements. One was make sure that the player funds were there, that they were accounted for, and
Yeah.
um, that was the big one. And two, it was a site that, like, I'm not going to promote a site I don't play on myself. Like, if I'm not able to play, or if I wouldn't play there, I wouldn't promote the site. Um, and so I flew down to Costa Rica. I met with the team. I met with Phil, and I saw the operation. It just so happens they had bought out the old PokerStars office, and they were, because I'd been down to the office before when it was PokerStars, but now it's ACR. And I went through and they showed me, they were very open with everything. And I was very comfortable that this was not a fly by the night. I wasn't aware that they had been around 21 years. I had no clue.
Okay.
And they had started from basically a guy in a file cabinet, essentially, building an online site. And they had built up to where they are at that point, which was America's Card Room. Um, and I saw an opportunity similar to what I saw with PokerStars back in the day, of being able to make a difference
Hmm.
and being able to hopefully build something that people are excited to play. Um, and people always, they ask me, like, you left PokerStars for an unregulated site. What people don't realize is I was with PokerStars for 17 years, and I would say minimum 12 of those years we were unregulated. Like,
Oh yeah.
we were the exact same as what ACR is today. Um, PokerStars was not regulated in the U.S., and they're still not regulated in most parts of the U.S. Like, this is, I've been representing sites like ACR since day one. So the unregulated stuff doesn't bother me. What bothers me would be if they didn't have funds to cover player balances. That's the biggest thing as an ambassador. That's your number one.
Yeah.
Make sure that if the company goes under, the players don't get screwed. Um, and once that obligation was met, and when I met the team, and I realized that there's an opportunity to grow something here, and I was able to play on the site, I was going to be able to personally, it fit my life better because I wasn't going to have to travel as much. It was a very tough decision for me because PokerStars has always been there for me. They've been a great company to work for. I have nothing but great things to say about the company.
Hmm.
I still have friends within the company. I talked to people the other day, from PokerStars. I spent a lot of, half my life there essentially. So, um, again, great company. I would still be with them. I just saw an opportunity that kind of fit with where I was in my life, with my family, and with how they are positioning their company, that I thought that it made really good sense for me to go and work with ACR.
Right.
And I will say, I signed with ACR in February of that next year. Um, it was really weird because I, told PokerStars I was leaving. They're like, well, we can renegotiate. I'm like, this really, unfortunately, isn't a renegotiation. Like you know, I wasn't looking for, I wasn't using it as a ploy to get more money or whatever. I was happy. Me and Phil made a deal, and I was happy with the deal.
Right.
So that was it. Um, anyways, so I left and I joined ACR. And obviously, that was big news in my circle. Like, obviously, it was very kind of groundbreaking, whatever. But over the course of what, 3 years now, 4 years, God, it's been that long. Um,
Yeah.
if people go back and look and see what America's Card Room, which is what it was then, to see what ACR is now, um, it really is, I feel like, night and day. If you're really honest with yourself and you look at the system issues we had, the bugs, the bots, the um, constant downtime, just the system. It was tough. Like the first 2 years was pretty brutal.
Okay.
But I knew what I was signing up for. I knew I was signing up for a growing company. Now, granted, they had been around for 21 years, but they were still very young in their um, online poker journey. Like they had a lot of growth that they needed to do, both internally and externally. And so we started, you know, internally trying to hire, the right people. And, a lot of the people that they did have were very good and were trained up. And, we do different things now. Um, I was never an operations guy at PokerStars, and I don't know how the back end works. I don't know how any of the software works. I couldn't tell you much of the technical stuff at all. I've never been a technical guy. I don't use a HUD. I don't know anything about any of the technical stuff. I leave all that to those people. The one thing I do know is, hey, I play poker. My name's Chris.
Right.
So I can go out and be me and just play poker and tell people this is where I play, and I'm comfortable, going out and promoting ACR because I play there on a daily basis. I have it up on my screen right now. After we get done, I'm probably going to sit down and play some Omaha High Low. I'm comfortable playing on the site. I would never promote a site that I'm not comfortable playing with myself, and that I feel has the best interest of the players at its core. Um, I think our site is growing tremendously and improving tremendously. Um, have we had growing pains? Sure. Have we made mistakes? Sure. Has our PR department been arguably the second worst ever outside of Club WPT? Yes. Um,
Yeah.
but we are, again, I think if you have a company that really does strive to build something that is, by design for the players. Um, and I really do truly believe that, they are building it to provide a service so people can play. And, again, they're not perfect. Not going to say they're perfect.
Right.
Um, but I will say every day they're getting better. Every day and, people want to sit here and, we have scandals. God, it seems like way more often than we never had any issues at PokerStars. Like our team was very well oiled, and it was really very smooth how it was ran.
Right.
Um, ACR is a little bit more like a dysfunctional family. There's fighting sometimes on the inside about what needs to be done. There's different opinions. There's um, uh, different ideas, whatever. But and we fight and we argue, but everybody's fighting for the reason of trying to improve the site, improve our PR, improve the player experience, whatever it is. But I will say that they do listen to us, and when people, so when a scandal pops up, everybody's like, "Why don't you quit? Are you going to quit?"
Right.
Well, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's me. Quitting's never really the answer. The only reason I would really quit would be if the site did something malicious to where, like, you have a pot ripper, a UB scandal situation where the site is complicit in stealing from players. Players aren't getting their money off the site, like the site's keeping their monies. They're stealing player funds, or they're doing something that harms the player base.
Right.
Um, you know, having, I don't know whether you want to call it bots or whether you want to call it RTA or whatever it is that we are currently dealing with in the online poker world right now. First of all, that it's not specific to ACR. Every site's dealing with these same issues.
True.
If you think that PokerStars and GG and Club WPT and whatever other site out there doesn't have RTA, doesn't have bots, then I think you're truly naive. It's something that everybody's constantly dealing with. I do know that ACR has a deal with GTO Wizard that they can go in and see in real time if someone is using the software to search out solutions to real time timestamp hands.
Okay.
And so I know that if someone is using that particular software, we can tell if they're doing it in real time. And obviously that's a really big no. Um, but I'll be the first to admit I've never used GTO Wizard. I don't really. I think I've been on the site once, and I think I tried to download it, and I don't think I ever successfully finished like
Right.
the process. I might have an account. I think I may have, but I don't know if they keep tracks. I would love to see if I ever really completed anything on there. That being said, like, I don't use a HUD. Like, I've never been a electronics guy. I'm a guy that when I'm playing, I'm watching Netflix or I'm talking to my wife or I've got
Right.
a lot of other stuff going on. I can't play more than 4 tables at a time. I play one table, maybe two. I like to focus on the table that I'm watching. I feel like I can make educated enough decisions based on people's play um, by just playing one table that mitigates their advantage of using a HUD. I might be. I think Renee from Storage Wars,
Mm-hmm.
me and him might be the only two people I know that don't use a HUD for sure. I don't know. I think everybody else uses a HUD. I'm sure
Right.
there are other players that don't, but I think anybody that plays as often as I do, as professionally as I do, they all use software. They all use the HUD. I would be shocked to find out others don't. And that doesn't even get into the whole RTA and everything else.
Right.
Um, and I'm sure you're going to ask me about um, Ebony and stuff, and we can discuss that now, or we can,
No, you
kind of,
answered a lot of questions. I was going to ask you about the GTO Wizard relationship and all that, but you're very versed, and I knew you would be about the situation. I also know you care about the players and your relationships. I mean, it's been just a trademark with you since you began playing from your heart and being very straightforward with everyone. But yeah, we can skip, talk a little bit about what you probably was a little bit of a mistake, the choice of the PR team, whoever it was at ACR in the beginning. And there are a lot of benefits, and I appreciate you sharing everything you have in your relationship. And I know players trust you, and that's why they play there and take your recommendation. But the beginning, the first time, the big bot issue. Now, like you said, every site GG has issues with the bots. It's just not ACR. So let's not we're not pinning them and pigeonholing them. But the first situation when you and Ebony came on, and talked about the situation, well, find bots for us. We'll give you a reward or whatever it might have been at that time. And looking back at it, did you look like, well, that wasn't the best PR way to approach that, and your participation with that?
Well, it's funny. I've never been one that will make. I try not to make rash, quick decisions, emotional decisions. I've always that's one good thing poker will teach you is to be patient, take your time, and not rush into decisions.
Yep.
And I will say that decision might be my worst. Um, and I was so again, like when I told you ACR, we have a lot of heated discussions about um, what we think will make the site better, what's going on with the site, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at this time, obviously, there's a bots are being talked about a lot, and me and several other team pros are very adamant about cleaning up the site and getting rid of these bots, and really, let's not. We don't really ever do lip service to anything, but like let's really show that we're cleaning up the site. And I'm talking on the phone with Phil Nagy, and Phil goes, "We don't have bots." And I go, "Motherfucker, we do. We have bots. I mean, I don't. They don't play like so. The bots or the AI. I'll be honest. I don't know how a bot operates. I don't know, but I do know like the stakes that I play. There are no bots. They don't play in the $600 tournaments. They don't play in the 1Ks. They don't play in the big PLO games.
Right.
I think because they would get beat. They play in the very small stakes. They play in the player pools that the majority of players play against. But we got to protect those players. Like those players, it's funny because when people would say there's a bot playing, I would always go to play against the bot, and I thought they were the worst players at the table. Like they were so easy to play. They were so aggressive that all you do is just check and let them bet, and they bury themselves.
Right.
They are in my opinion, they're very easy to beat, but against other players, it can be very difficult. It's just not fair. So, me and Phil are, we don't have bots. God, we do have bots. And he goes, "Man, if you can show me a bot, I'll give you $100,000." I said, "Man, I could promise you, I could probably go find a bot. If whatever." So, we're yelling on the phone at each other.
Yeah.
And again, normally I don't make rash decisions. Normally, our PR department is not the best. I'll be the first to admit, but they generally will listen. They'll listen to some reason about what we're doing. And I'm never one just to fly off the handle. But me and Phil were getting into it. Like he was adamant there were no bots, and I'm adamant that there are bots. And I don't even know what a bot is. Like I couldn't find a bot if I was playing against one. If someone's saying there's a bot playing, I'll go try to play against them. Like we have other team pros that can go through and look at their sizings and patterns and all this other crap that and it tells them that they're a bot. I'll be honest, I could be playing a table with 9 bots and I probably couldn't tell you if they were a bot or not. Maybe they all play the same. I don't know, but I had heard from enough people that one, I trust, and two, that play every single day on the site. They're telling me there are bots that when there's smoke, there's fire. We need to check into it. We need to push harder. Yep. And I was getting pushback, and that was really, honestly, fucking irritating. So I made a rash decision that I'm going to give someone $100,000 if they can just prove that there's a bot on the site. And Phil goes, "Well, fuck it, do it." And I don't know how it happened, but it went from us arguing back and forth. And my whole goal was to prove to him that we have a problem that needs to be fixed, because his argument was you can't prove something that isn't there. So if I could prove to him that we have bots, well, then he has to solve the problem. But he truly didn't believe we had a problem. So therefore the bot challenge. And how Ebony got involved, I really have no idea. Like it was all 9 o'clock at night, worst ideas possible. Like, let's just throw this crap up against the wall. And somehow me and Ebony got on screen and we came up with probably top one, not two ideas in online
Mhm.
poker of creating a bot challenge. Obviously,
Yeah.
not something that we thought through.
Okay.
This was a internal fight between me and Phil that kind of spilled over into social media, and um, it is out of all the PR and all the idiotic and sometimes bad things that we've said at ACR, this one was pretty much all my doing. I kind of own the bot challenge as, again, a fight that got carried over into the social media world that obviously it should never have been. Um, when we issued the bot challenge, we immediately started getting submissions of um, bots that I guess that you can click a button, and I guess on the screen it will click the fold button, and they were calling that a bot.
Right.
And it wasn't playing per se; it was just fold, fold, fold.
Right. Right.
And there, I mean, I guess technically that's an automated something playing, but like that's not the spirit of what this challenge was. We weren't going to offer someone 100 grand because they could get something to hit a button.
Right.
Um, so like literally right after I submitted the challenge or whatever, Phil came out and, or I don't know if it was Phil's idea. It's like, no, the bot has to actually make decisions. Like it's
Mhm.
got to be, it can't just click a button over and
A
over and over.
program. Yeah.
It's got to be a program that knows poker or can make decisions and play poker. And I'll be the first to admit I'm not the security guy. I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but from what I gather is we had people starting to try and make bots, which is very bad. That's not what that was never the intention.
Right.
Um, and people were trying to, basically prove that they had bots. Now we ended up killing the promotion, if you want to call it a promotion, or
Right.
the worst idea ever, before anybody reached the 5,000 hand threshold. I don't know if anybody completed, made a bot. Um, Again, I believe, I don't know how a bot would work, but I do believe that they're on every site. Um, but the one thing I will say
Hmm.
is after that challenge, now granted, it was the worst idea ever. I know we've eliminated, deleted, blocked, whatever, removed thousands of accounts off ACR
Okay.
that are deemed either RTA, bots, some kind of assistance when they're playing. Um, so while the idea, in my view, might be one of the worst ever, I'm hoping that the result of the bad idea ends up being a positive.
Right. Right.
Um, and again, so when people call for me to quit or call for one of a team pro to quit on any site, really, um, I don't think it's really in their best interest or anybody else's best interest for us to quit, um, because us quitting doesn't solve the problem. Um, Now, the one thing that I take very strongly is the fact that yes, I feel like, and I hope my opinion and my position and where I play matters to people, and
Hmm.
people trust that when I'm playing at PokerStars or playing at ACR, that they feel safe, that their money is that they're getting treated fairly and their money's safe. That's really important to me. And again, it's not always the easiest road to get there. But if there's a time where I don't think I'm making a difference, or I don't think that the operator is operating in good faith, then I would leave that site.
No, I understand.
Uh,
I was going to ask you. Yeah, I appreciate you explaining all that because I didn't know those details. That it was your idea in that respect, but I know you'll always just be a straight shooter with me and the industry. I was going to ask you, and it's come up a number of times, and we'll segue into some other things that are happening. Obviously, it's a fun site to play on. A lot of the top pros I know play on the site, so they also speak up about if they see any issues, like you guys that are more tech savvy. But what do you think? Not just ACR, PokerStars, GG. What's the responsibility of an ambassador? You've basically said, because David Kuhn, Jason Kuhn left. His situation, Ike Haxton moved on from different conflicts they had with the platform they were working on. What is the responsibility of an ambassador, and are they ever complicit a little bit by staying on where they know there's an issue? You've sort of explained it here, but what else would you share there about an ambassador's responsibility to the site that's paying them?
well, I mean, first of all, I'll say every ambassador is different. So
True.
we have ambassadors at both PokerStars and ACR that, I mean, your role is to stream, and if you're comfortable streaming on the site and you're playing on the site, then obviously you're comfortable enough that you're playing on the site that you can endorse the site.
Right.
Um, you know, as an ambassador, like your really one job is to go on there and stream, and you get paid to do that. Um, and I will say, generally, the majority of the streamers don't really have a whole lot of contact with the CEOs or the higher ups. They have a manager that handles their day to day schedule or their
Right.
monthly schedule or whatever. And honestly, they don't have the voice that some other pros do. And then you have pros like myself and some of the other team pros where we have meetings and we meet with, again, it's different at every company. Back in the day, we had meetings. I would meet with Esai.
Mhm.
I would be in meetings with the higher ups. Then it transformed into there was never a meeting. Like, hey, you're
Right.
going there, you're going to do this, and I really didn't enjoy the that kind of part of it. I like being, knowing what's going on within the company somewhat. I mean, I don't know behind the scenes. Like, so the one thing that I always liked about both PokerStars and ACR is if I ask about a customer's account, they're never going to tell me, why was this person banned or why they never reveal anything about a customer's account information to myself.
Right.
There's like a Chinese wall there. I don't know what goes on behind the curtain per se, as far as how the site operates or any of the technical stuff. And I don't really need to, and I don't really want to because I play on the site every day.
Mhm.
It's not fair for me to know any of that stuff. I shouldn't know who's behind account XYZ. I
Right.
shouldn't know why this person got banned or why that's not really in my purview. But what is in my purview is when I see um, things that we're not doing correctly, like the bots, for example.
Mhm.
I have a voice not only on social media that I can express, but I have a voice within the company direct to the higher ups saying, "Hey, we have a problem here, and
Mhm.
this is something that we need to address." And I will say that everybody on our team, or the majority of people, team pros on our team, um, are constantly, fighting to make the site better. It gets annoying at some point because we have so many ideas. I mean, I think we have 12 team pros ballpark,
Right.
and hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. We need to focus here. We need to, you know, we have a lot of stuff going on. We're a growing company. We're growing very fast. But I will say that as an ambassador, depending upon where you are, your role is to try to make the site as good as you possibly can for the customer
Mhm.
and as ethical. You want to make sure that their ethics are in the right spot. Um, and, you know, if I'm going to stay with the site, I want to be because I trust the site. If I don't trust to play on the site, um, it doesn't matter how much money I get paid from ACR. Like I could leave tomorrow and
Right.
be fine. I could go find another site. I could move on. And so I'm not just sitting there collecting a paycheck. I'm there because I believe I make a difference, and I believe that the people that run the company, i.e., Phil, and the team behind them, I've met all these people,
Right.
and um, they're not evil. They all, just like most every other person, they go to work every day with the best intentions, and they're trying to build a really good online site. How we get there is questionable sometimes. We fight about it. We try to argue which is the best route to go, and but the good feeling is even though all my ideas, all Drew's ideas or whoever's ideas may not be the best,
Hmm.
we are able to discuss those ideas, and those ideas are heard, and we generally will come up, hopefully through discourse, about what is the best course forward. um, I will say that ACR, from when I joined to where we are now, the level of skill of our operators, our uh, not our PR, but our operators, our customer service has improved dramatically, and hopefully continues to improve dramatically. I will say I'm very proud of what you see on ACR now versus
Right.
what you saw when I joined. Uh, we changed our name. We're a whole new company,
Right.
but we didn't only change our name. We don't have the downtimes that we had. We don't have drops like we did before. Like it's very rare now that you see our server drop. Um, we are trying to listen to players, and one of the biggest complaints we had was the 5 days of late registration to for an event.
Hmm.
We've cut that down. We're trying to make it more user friendly. And one of the things that I really enjoy is like we came up with these new racer spin and goes and sit and go suicide things that for me, like I like something that's personally, this is me being jealous. I like something that's fast. Like usually, I have 3 kids at home. Like I have 15 minutes. Hey, I want to play something fast. I can't
Right.
get into a tournament. I don't really want to hit and run a cash game. Hey, I can play this Survivor flip and go. It's going to take me 10 minutes, and then maybe I can win a big prize later. Um, and ACR has come out with a lot of new concepts like that, and it makes the site just more fun. It gives you a lot more variety of things to play.
Right.
When I first started at ACR, you couldn't sit down and play a full schedule. Like I could play like an event in the morning and then maybe one at night, or some days are like on Fridays there would never be an event for me to play.
Hmm.
I like playing the 215s and 600s, 1 to 1Ks. There were no events for me to play. um, and even if you were the small, playing 20s, it was still hard to play a full schedule. We have finally built it up to where we have a full schedule with really good guarantees, with a really good server that doesn't drop, with security that is eliminating, you know, players constantly. Um, Unfortunately, it's always going to be a battle. Doesn't matter how many players we eliminate, how many players we kick off. They're always going to come back. You're always going to have bad actors when they're talking about money, and that's the unfortunate part with online poker. Is it doesn't matter if you're ACR, Poker Stars, GG. You're going to have bad actors, and it's going to be a constant shell game of trying to figure out what the new methods of cheating is, what the new how are people taking advantage of you. People are very creative when it comes to stealing
For
and
sure.
being bad actors. So it's not easy just to say, okay, we'll just ban XYZ.
Right.
Um, I honestly have so much respect for our security team and other security teams within the industry, because um, the amount of threats they probably have to deal with on a daily basis, and the amount of education that they have to get to stay ahead of the curve to keep
Mhm.
up with these cheats is mind numbing to me. Like it's funny because with AI coming out and all this stuff, like I need to like reset and like learn AI. Um, I'm so far behind when it comes to this stuff, and these guys have to be on the cutting edge of it all
Right.
because the opponents are.
It's very clear to me, having known you for 20 years and watched you in the game, that your heart's in the right place. If there's any compromise of integrity anywhere you were, you would have left in a second. I know that in my heart. I know that from watching and the way you talk. You're very sincere. So just know that that's how we feel. But let's evolve a little bit further, because the things that are happening more now, and I'm curious if some of it stings to you, because I know your reputation, I know you personally, but with it evolving into the issues that Nacho had and the PR team going, whoops, silly mistake. And then recently, a couple of days ago, like, well, he was a bad boy. And now with Ebony being dragged into using, claiming not to be able to use RTA. Same for Nacho when they were playing, which is not allowed in the terms of service. How do you feel about that situation? Because RTA is obviously a new thing. It's different than the bots. Of a lot of people, I know you don't use RTA in any shape or form, but it's a
It
positive. And
always
you
sucks
see,
when you're so bad that people can't accuse you of cheating. It's always a good thing.
yeah, you're that bad, Chris. Bad boy. But Matt Berkey had a podcast yesterday. I haven't had a chance to watch it. I wanted to before this, about saying that bots are stealing millions of dollars off the sites, not just ACR. I don't know all the details at all of what he said, but talk about. And you're not a tech dude. I'm not a tech dude either. But I know people who are, like the Patrick Leonards of the world. Is a pretty amazing dude, to share about the RTA situation now that's happening, embroiling Ebony. And I know you'll talk about that because you're familiar with it. At the same time, the response on some of the social media, the memes picking on you and the ACR team, now the crime family thing that came out yesterday. Let's discuss that a little bit, and then we can wrap it up. Talk about something positive. The Moneymaker Tour is a pretty amazing venture that you started, that my team is at right now. PokerOrg's over there right now. One of your big events, our producers. So, talk to me about the RTA situation, and then the memes that pop up. Putting you in jail and wearing an orange jumpsuit, which I don't appreciate, and it's got a sting now and then. But some of it's funny, I'm sure, maybe to you, and some of it's not. So, talk a little bit about that.
Well, so first of all, RTA. It's obviously, I don't know how long RTA has been around, but it seems like, how I watched a video the other day that Kevin Martin did, about how he would have to go through like 8,000 steps to come, like he had to do all this random stuff to come to this one solution of
Mm-hmm.
what the correct thing to do. Well, now I guess if you use a software that's out there now, GTO Wizard or whatever, I don't even know all of them out there. It takes like 5 seconds.
The decision trees. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives you all the answers of what the optimal play should be in like 5 seconds.
Right.
And I guess I don't know. I mean, we're truly to that point where you run. I mean, I guess you are, because you can run something and get the answer. But again, people can. So again, ACR I know has a deal with GTO Wizard, so they can go back and see if you're running a hand that corresponds with a tournament that you're playing. So it's, I don't say easy because there's a lot of data. I don't even know how they would, unless someone flags it. Again, I don't know how security works on that end, but I do know that there's a fair play tool. There's a tool that they can go back and they can track and see who's cheating, who's doing what.
Right.
So now you fast forward to Nacho and Ebony, and
Okay.
um, obviously, first was Nacho, and I'm not even going to get into our PR responses because
That's fine.
they're trying to compete with me on the um, bot challenge when it comes to their responses. But the point is so I know that both ACR and Pads did an investigation into Nacho's play,
Mm-hmm.
and both found that he actually played so bad that it if he was cheating, it was the worst cheating ever.
I,
Like no
I saw
decision. At no point did he make a correct decision.
that.
It's almost it's kind of comically
Yeah,
funny that like he didn't make a correct decision.
right.
So having a GTO wizard up, which I've come to learn. Like I guess there's I'm not trying to promote these sites by any stretch, but there's one that's an application
Yeah,
that you can't have the application up while you have ACR up.
yeah,
The other GTO wizard is a web based, like it's a browser based thing.
yeah.
So it's going to be on your browser. And I don't know technically if there's any way that we could block it. And if there is, I mean, obviously you can have a laptop sitting over here. I could have a laptop right there and have it up.
Exactly.
You couldn't do a damn thing about it. So I mean, and with VPN, I don't. I'm sure there's ways around it. I mean, I know there's. I mean, someone was trying. Our tech guy was trying to explain to me all the different ways how people could get around. Like you could spoof and all. Oh, like man, you're just talking like alien languages to me here.
Yeah,
But that being said, there are it's a tab based thing. So, and obviously he did a video where it showed him having this up while he was playing, which breaks terms of service.
right.
And then Ebony had the same thing. And my first knee jerk reaction is like, we need to fire them both. We need to get rid of them. Like, done. You got caught cheating and you're done. Well, obviously it was found out that Nacho didn't cheat. Like it's almost impossible for him to have cheated because he played so bad. And then they went back and first of all, the Ebony thing wasn't even recent. It was someone had, I guess, saw the clip that she had posted on Instagram from a year or two ago and
And saved
saved it
it. Yeah,
until I guess the right time and unleashed it. And so the person doing it didn't care about security, didn't care about whatever. He was using it to hurt Ebony. Um, and it was a calculated decision by this person. But his decision had the desired effect. It put Ebony in the crosshairs of whatever was going on with Nacho. Now, I will say that I've never used any of that stuff, but I will say that I'm a very, if you look at my screen,
hmm,
I've got probably 70 tabs open right now.
wow.
I've got all my different projects that I'm working on, all my different, whatever I'm working on. Whenever I get done with it, I leave the tab on where I'm at so I don't lose my place. And that's just something I've done for as long as I can remember. So I'm sure that I've played on ACR when I've had chip leader coaching up, Faraz Jaka coaching up, some kind of
Hmm.
like I use. I've worked with Faraz, I've worked with Chance, I've worked with their training sites, and I know for a fact there's been points where on one of my 70 tabs or wherever they are on my, minimized on my screen, I'm playing ACR, and I know my training site is up somewhere
Right.
on has charts or whatever. Um, and is it feasible that I could pull up that page, that browser, and have the ACR there and take a picture and send it out? I mean, first of all, I think I would be a fucking idiot to do it. Secondly, I know that you know I'm not doing this in a malicious way, and like anybody can go back. And that's one good thing about having the free play tool is you can go back and see, is anybody making close decisions or, getting some like playing a GTO style from what I understand of it is very difficult to do. It's not something that people, there's so many different spots and so many different things that you have to get right. I think it's like sizings and it's everything. Um, so again, I'm very confident that no one could ever find anything on me. First of all, I wouldn't even come close to being close to GTO. I know, but so when you look at someone like Ebony, what she did was bad, yes, and I have been, again, behind the scenes, and the first day need to be fired. We need to fire. Rash decision. Let's get rid of her. It's the easy solution. Um, and then we've had discussions like, so what is cheating? What is RTA? What is you know is having a chart up? Obviously, that's an advantage. To having a chart that
For
tells
sure.
you what to do is an advantage.
For sure.
But you also have to be. You can't be naive. You have to be realistic. Um, Again, like I say, me and Renee probably are the only two people I know that don't use HUDs. I've got to be realistic. RTA, I don't know how new it is, but I think it's within the last couple of years since COVID, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a thing, it's real, and people use it. Um, I would bet, unfortunately, most people play online have some form of RTA or help somewhere in their purview that's helping them make decisions.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
I, Again, when you start playing, I'm a little bit cynical when it comes to that. You start playing for money, you start, playing for the amount of money that we play for. I think, unfortunately, people will take advantage of situations.
Well, let me throw in something real quick because my background in playing sports. I grew up playing golf. Got a golf scholarship to college, and in that sport, it's obviously poker's different. We would call penalties on ourselves. So, shouldn't ambassadors' responsibility be to make sure all their tabs are closed before they play on there? And no matter what side it be, GG, ACR, it doesn't matter. It's an ultra responsibility as an ambassador and representative of the game to make sure that all is closed. And my first reaction was, too, they should be fired because it is a bad look overall. I understand the investigation and the people's complaints about companies investigating themselves, but where do we go from here? Shouldn't an ambassador who's being paid to be on the site to be a true rep of a brand should be the first thing they do is check their tabs, make sure that's gone, and fire up the site. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So they should be
I
ultra
100%
careful.
agree with you. Like, so I bet if you went through my tabs right now, I'm almost positive I don't have anything because I haven't used anything in a while. But when it comes to what happened with Ebony, what happened with Nacho,
Right.
um, my first reaction was fire him. But so it's very difficult for me to argue about taking someone's livelihood away.
I
Um,
understand.
so it's not, when I make a knee jerk reaction like that, they need to be fired. Um, you know, I need to take a pause and be like, well, is that an appropriate reaction? So, like, what would happen if it was a normal player and, they get not caught using RTA, but they post a picture and someone sends it to our support? Like, what happens to that person? And I asked Phil and the rest of the team that exact question.
What does happen?
What happens when an account gets posted that shows a picture of RTA or something in the background? Some people take pictures of that, that stuff. Well, basically, he told me is they go through, not to get too in depth of how our security protocols work, but they'll
Yeah.
go through and they'll look at the account, and if the account hasn't used real time assistance, they'll get a warning. And after the warning is issued, if it's found to happen again, then they would get banned.
Right.
Um, so his position is that she should receive a warning, and if it happens again, then she should be banned. Now, I'm under the impression, like you are, that as an ambassador, we should be held to a higher standard.
Yep.
We're not just players on the site; we represent the site. So, I do believe that yes, she should get a warning, but I also believe that she should either be suspended. I don't know what the I don't know what the disciplinary should be. Should she be fired? If she's fired, he's fired. Not. I don't think you can get rid of one without the other. I think it has to be
Right.
a joint thing. Um, if I owned ACR, I would probably get rid of both of them. If I uh, I'm being real with myself. But
Understand?
that's again, it's easy for me to say when it's not my decision to make. I remember when I first one of the first things that I had to do when I joined ACR was during the first WSOP. Ryan DePaulo was in a huge fight with one of the staff in our office, and it got into a head to a point where we had determined it was time to part ways with Ryan DePaulo,
Hmm.
and they tasked me to go in and fire him.
Wow.
Um, so I went into a room. I don't know how this transpired to me firing him, but whatever. It ended up being on me, and I got into a room with Ryan, and I'm staring this young kid in the face, and I'm basically saying, "Hey, we're getting rid of you, and we're getting rid of you because um, essentially you don't have a mute button, and um, you don't know how to act." And what he's believing is a what ACR used to be more of a fraternity house, rompous, whatever style, to now we've evolved into more of a established company. More, you can't say the things that you could say years ago. Hell, you can't say half the things you could say 10 years ago now, whatever.
Understood.
But whatever, for whatever reason, he was going to be let go for things he has said and the things that he has done. And um, so it's easy for me to say fire him when I go in to sit with Ryan DePaulo and I'm supposed to be letting him go. And I'm talking with him. And over the course of the discussion, I just come to the realization that, like, he didn't mean harm. He really thought it was a safe space, that it was a closed group. It didn't say anything that would have got him canceled or, was just overly, like, I don't know. There were a lot of sensitive people, I guess,
Yeah.
and feelings were hurt. But I came out of there and he kept his job, and we smoothed it over internally because it was an internal issue, and everything went back and it was fine. And Ryan DePaulo lived for another year and a half before he did something externally that was really stupid. But so yeah, for me to say yeah, I'm going to fire him. Like, again, it's easy for me to say as someone that doesn't have to pull the trigger and fire him. Again, taking away someone's livelihood is a major thing. Um, I don't know the appropriate discipline short of firing somebody. Do you suspend them, suspend pay for a year? Is that good enough?
Right.
Do you just cut ties with them and move on? Um, Again, if they were found to have cheated at all, then I don't think there's any way you can do anything but fire them.
Yeah.
But the fact that, I mean, I'll say this: if someone's cheating, I think they're going to be a lot more careful about their screen popping up charts and whatever. That's just my personal view. Is if you're not cheating and you don't really have anything to hide, and you actually don't have whatever the chart up, um, you're probably not cheating. You're probably just an idiot. Which, honestly, I really don't want idiots working for me either. But that's another story.
Okay.
Um, so it's a tough thing. If, again, if it were me, I would probably and you can ask the people that work for me. I'm probably the biggest pushover there is. Like, I am very easy to work for. I'm almost too nice to people that work for me.
Mhm.
So again, like, I see where Phil and them come from. Phil hates firing people. Like, it is the one thing that really, like, when he fires somebody, he gets really sick. Like, it really hurts him. So, and there, we always do joke. It's really hard to get fired from ACR. Like, you really got to screw up,
Right.
because Phil just doesn't like letting people go. Um,
No,
you know,
I get it.
but that being said, I mean, obviously, they should be held to a higher standard, and they messed up.
No,
So,
I,
um,
I've had to fire people. I ran a nutrition CEO of a nutrition company. I had to fire. It's no fun at all, but sometimes it sets a precedent. Like, this is the way it's going to be. Let's go to something a little more. and move to something really positive. I want to talk about your tour, but let's talk a bit about what's happened the last couple of days and how you feel about it, because so many people care about you. As far as the stuff that's popped up from Club WPT, and other memes have been going on for the past few days with the crime family video with AI. I mean, who knew that AI? I knew was crazy smart with what it's been doing lately. And like you, I'm not
In the
that clued
world we
into
live
it.
in, AI and people able to create videos like that and do things like that. Um,
Let's tell them what we're talking about first, because I have no clue. I'm really not like you, not clued into it. I haven't had time to spend with AI, but I will. So we're talking about a video that came up about talking about the ACR crew as a crime family, playing it off as a mafioso team, and starts off with you in a jumpsuit and being carried away in handcuffs, and Jeff Boske carrying a 45 at the table. So, I mean, obviously, we all get a chuckle at it. We all know these people. You and I know all these people personally. At the same time, does it
one of them
sting?
real personally.
Oh, I know. Well, it's right. It hits home when you're in jail, Chris. But it has to hit home. It has to sting a little bit because in Chris Moorman, his reputation is above board, just like yours. I'm not going one by one to pick apart, but it's got to sting a little bit. And what's your reaction to that whole video and the memes popping up and all that situation going on right now?
So first of all, I mean, I've got a pretty thick everything, like thick skin. Like I've been in this world for 20 some odd years.
Yeah,
Um, People have said, so many things about me. I suck and I'm fat and I'm one hit wonder, whatever it is. There's always, especially online nameless trolls that constantly say stuff.
yeah.
And that's never once bothered me. Like that's just part of the territory. I've always just let it kind of flow off my back. I will say that having a company like WPT that has a brand like that to do what they're doing makes no sense to me. Um, like I would never in a million years see another online site attack a competitor or attack the industry like that. I think it's very irresponsible. I know who's behind it. The guy is a professional troll. He hates ACR. He has an agenda against ACR, and um, I don't know. While I don't know him personally, obviously, I don't think very highly of him. I do think the videos are funny. I think he is very creative. If it were anybody else, I would probably be laughing at the videos.
Mm,
The fact that I'm the lead character in the video, it doesn't per se bother me. I mean, I fall back on the fact that I've been in this industry for 20 plus years and I'm very confident that I try to make always the best decisions. It does suck for me, Mormon, all Boski, these guys that I know do things the right way, and we catch strays based on what other counterparts have done, and that I think that's what upset me more than when I came out. I want them fired. Like I was pissed, not because of the video, not because of what was done, is because of what how irresponsible they were, and what people don't understand is your actions affect other people, and what they did not only affects them, it affects us. And again, we're catching strays for no reason. We're catching we're being called cheaters, or people will assume like if I win anything online, well, yeah, he's a team pro, of course he's going to win.
right.
It's funny, I've always said for years that I'm in a no-win situation. If I win anything, then online, it's because I'm a team. It was like Poker Stars the same way. I'm a team pro. It's rigged for me.
Right.
If I lose, well, then I suck. I'm just a terrible player. So I'm like, so over time, you just learn to embrace it. You're just like, hey, whatever. It is what it is. Um, you know, I would say for a while in my career, I probably did search for a little validation of, hey, I'm still a good player. Like, treat me nice. I'm a good player. Um, to where I've evolved to where I want people to assume I suck. Like, that's your best skill in poker, is for people to think that you're terrible.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, being bad is one thing. Being called a cheat is something completely different.
Yeah.
Now, while the memes are funny and very unprofessional, they don't bother me to an extent where, I'm going to reach out and give them anything, because, again, I know that me and the other players that are portrayed in it haven't done anything wrong. And he's making videos for clicks. He's making videos to increase traction to his site. Um, and again, I don't personally agree with that kind of marketing, or that kind of, like, I would never do that to someone else. That's just not my character. It's not who I am. But I mean, this person's been doing this from day one. Like, everybody knows that's who he is. I've seen his videos done on other players, and I find them funny. You know, so I can't be a hypocrite and be like, oh, it's funny when it's done to someone else, but when it's done to me, no good, foul. You can't do that.
Right.
It's shut it down. No, I mean, hey, I thought it was funny when they did it against X player, but now, they're putting me in there. And now, granted, I don't think I deserve being in there, but I'm in there. Whatever. I'm not going to say, hey, you need to shut this shit down or whatever. It's like, just roll with the punches, take it, whatever. Again, I've got a thick skin. I can promise you, I didn't lose any sleep over it. It doesn't bother me one bit. I know that what we're doing, excuse me, is trying to make the site better, trying to make the site safer, and trying to do the right thing. And that's all we can really do.
Okay.
What happens with Ebony, what happens with Nacho, what happens with the other team pros, I don't know what that's going to hold. That's thankfully, again, not my decision. Like, I can provide input. I can provide it, my opinion, and they can take it or leave it. Now, after that, it's my choice. If they don't take my opinion, should they, I think they should be fired. I still kind of, under the impression I think they should be fired, even though they didn't cheat, just because they should be held to a higher standard. But is it something is that going to be my red line, or my stand on the hill and say I'm going to
Yeah.
quit if you don't fire him? Um, you
Well,
know,
let's, I got it. I don't want you to repeat yourself. You've made your stance and very clear. I appreciate your sincerity and honesty. A couple quick questions. I want to talk about your Moneymaker tour, because a lot of people are really enjoying being on the tour and playing in your events. But quick questions. What do you think? And we can answer these quickly. You don't seem to play in a lot of WSOP events. Is it just a lot of time involved? Do you play in a couple? Are you going to play in a handful this year besides the main event? What's your plan?
well, I mean, I think, we talked about it a little bit earlier about how COVID, and honestly, like, I never played WSOP events. The biggest problem I always have is it's in the summer. I mean, my
Yeah.
kids are out in school. Like,
Okay.
it's one thing to travel when my kids are in school and they're gone the majority of the day, but like, during the summer, we want to be out on the lake. We want to be, at the cabin, out on the boat, doing jet skis, um, having fun. Like, that's time that you don't get back. Like,
Right.
that's family time. And they put the World Series of Poker smack dab in the middle of it.
Okay.
So, no, what, my youngest is 13 now. So in about 6, 7 years from now, I might play more of a World Series
Mhm.
schedule. I might play more events, but I mean, while they're still enjoying, hanging out with their parents, which anybody that has kids realizes
Yeah.
it's very rare. I mean, hell, my 19 and 17-year-old are ghosts now. Like, they live in the house, but like, I wouldn't know if, one lives upstairs and one is in the back of the house, and I barely see them. They're driving, so they're off doing their own thing. And
Yeah.
now, granted, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that they have their own lives, and you know they're independent, and they started off. I don't want them to be at home having to be around us. Like, the whole point is for them to go out and enjoy their life. But it does make it sad when you're the parent and they don't need you anymore. Now, granted, they still need the card that works to get them everywhere.
Credit
But
cards. Yep.
yeah, they need the money. But they don't need you for a lot of the things that they've always needed you for. And even my 13-year-old son, I mean, it it's sad. It actually does make me a little bit sad that. So he came about 2 months ago and he said, "Dad, I'm having my first poker game with my friends." I'm like, "Oh, cool! So it's finally happening, huh?" My older two daughters, no care in the world, didn't care, thought poker was the most boring thing ever. But now my son, he's looking to play his first game. I'm like, hey, great! You want any pointers? No, Dad, I'm good. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, no, I'm fine. So he went off and he won $7,
Uh-oh.
and now, he thinks knows what poker is. And so I asked him, so what do you do with two aces if you have 100 bigs? He's like, well, you go all in. I'm like, all right. Well, what do you do with ace king? He's like, well, you bet. So it's like $1, $2. How much do you bet if you have $100? So you have 50 bigs. He's like, well, you bet 50. I'm like, you've got this figured out, son. When you want some help, you come talk to me. But yeah, they obviously have a little bit to desire on the poker strategy side of things, but uh, I am excited that he's showing a little bit of interest. It was only I think for like a weekend that him and his friends played, but
Right.
so yeah, that's exciting. But like, I don't want to miss those times. I want to be here.
Oh,
Again, my son's 13. I have 6 more years, maybe 5 more years, that he needs me / wants to be around me, and then he'll be gone.
he's
And
gone. Well,
um,
it sounds like you're making up for lost time too. You talked in the interview with Lee about not being at home with your family when you're supporting the family and traveling a lot. But a couple other quick things. I want to talk about your tour. How do you feel about what Chamath has proposed about a high stakes tour like Triton that he would work with and Phil with drug testing and no mask involved? What's a quick response to that?
never happened.
Never happened. I didn't think so. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see.
I mean,
Um,
I don't know. Whatever. I don't think that there's that big of an issue. People smoke weed. People take Adderall. People do stuff. I mean, like, some people need to take Adderall. Like, how do you tell someone that has a prescription for Adderall you can't take it?
Exactly. Well, it's interesting that David, I keep saying David, a friend named David Kuhn, Jason, bringing up an issue with how live poker is going to have to change and all the testing, no sunglasses. With the meta glasses, you can listen in and ways to cheat, and other players going, I can't not wear my glasses. I don't wear contacts. So it's kind
If
of
I if I
interesting.
if I can't wear these, I can't see, and I'm sure you're probably the same way. I mean,
Exactly.
I can see distance. I can't see up close. I couldn't see my cards if I
I'm the
don't have
same.
glasses.
I'm the same. I can see,
But I've got meta glasses, and you can see meta. I mean, meta glasses, they have the camera. Like,
I know.
it's obvious what a meta glass is. So yeah, you want to ban meta glasses, advanced glasses? Yeah, so be it. I don't know. Banning face coverings and all that stuff. Um, Again, I use a lot of tells and a lot of visual information, but it's not really all to do with the face. I
Right.
mean, there are things to do with the face, but so hiding that stuff does preclude a little bit of what hurts me. So I would be for no face coverings and no sunglasses, but that's me just being jealous. Like that, um,
Right.
I believe you should be comfortable when you play. Um,
Well,
so
okay. Let's talk about. I really appreciate your time today, and you were in the car, we're at home with the dogs, but it's been great. And something that's really has to be exciting. You certainly didn't think about it when you were playing your home game for $1, $2 when you first began poker, and then when you won the main event. That eventually you would have a very celebrated poker tour of your own. You've got a great team. People love playing. PokerOrg is there covering an event right now. Smaller buy-ins to some extent, some of the events, and it's just so much fun. It has to be really rewarding for you to give back to the game in this way. To me about the inception a little bit, and about your excitement for the future of Moneymaker Tour.
So the inception was essentially looking around at the tour landscape uh, post COVID of people canceling guarantees, people
Oh yeah,
having the rake be astronomical, uh, structures not being favorable to for the lower buy-in. Like, if you go play a big buy-in event, you can play. Again, old people can't play it because it lasts so long. But you can't go spend $500 in a lot of situations and find a structure that enables you to play and
Have
get your
fun.
money's worth. Yeah, get your money's worth, have fun, whatever. It turns into a crapshoot. So we saw a need to have a medium-sized tour that didn't have astronomical rake, that had better structures, that if we put a guarantee out, we hit the guarantee, or we pay the guarantee no matter what. And we tried to build fun, different, structures, different, mixed games, different things that generally aren't offered. You go to most tour stops, it's going to be all no limit. There might be one PLO in there. We try to have different mixed games. We try to have different things. You'll see that during the WSOP, they'll have all variations of the games. But like if you go to a random XYZ stop, there's not. It's going to be all no limit and maybe one PLO event.
Right.
Ladies events have gone away. We want to bring ladies into the game, and whether you think that they're right or wrong, ladies events are, I think, a very good vessel to bring new women into the game and to give them if you want to call it a safe space or whatever, to play and to feel comfortable.
I agree.
So we want to have ladies events. We want to have, one thing that I saw the WSOP is doing now, which I think is a great idea. I never thought of it, is the beginners, or I don't even know what they call it, but it's like you have under 50,000 and Hendon mob results or whatever.
Novice, probably, yeah.
Yeah, something. That's a great concept. Like, it's something that I probably would have done, but now that the WSOP is doing it, I mean, we're not going to just copy it. I think it's a great idea, though. But I think coming up with just different concepts, different cool things. So that was the inception of it. The guy I wanted to work with more than anybody, me and Tony had been friends for a very long time. And we had the idea to start the tour. And so the tour's it's been off to a fantastic start. But now it's kind of weird now because we're entering a phase in the tour where, so Tony is, he's always been a guy that, anybody that knows Tony, he worked at the Hard Rock down in Florida, and he was tournament director down there. And he started working for me, and he was able to, you know, travel and do all these things and be on the road. And some people are made to be on the road, and some people are made to be 9 to 5,
Mhm.
more structured. And I think Tony and I both learned through the first year and a half that he's more of an administrator, more of a guy that needs to be more centralized. It's going to be better for him, better for his family if he is not on the road as much. So we're in the process right now with the Moneymaker tour of transitioning from Tony being at every stop to Tony is going to be the guy that builds the tour, um, does the stuff behind the scenes, but you won't see his smiling face at every tour stop. He's
Right.
going to be at select stops that are probably closer to him. He'll stop in, ideally, obviously, the Florida stops. Now, it was awful convenient. He picked the Aruba stop as one of the stops he wants to go to.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, yeah, it's very, very, very convenient. Tony
Tony.
does that sometimes. No, but he's going to step away from some of the travel side of things. And so the Moneymaker tour, it will continue, but it'll be interesting to see, what direction we head. I don't know if we're going to expand at the rate that we had originally planned, just because, with Tony not going to all the stops, we don't know, we may stick with the partners we have right now and stay. Eventually, we would like to get to a set schedule so we could do, player of the year type stuff, do,
Mhm.
expand on some of that stuff. But, with Tony making this decision and me supporting that decision, over the next couple months, we're going to figure out what makes sense from a tour standpoint as far as growth, and what makes sense as far as who's going to be at specific stops. If anybody's been to our stops, they've seen Tony, they've seen Omar, our camera guy, they've seen Andy there, and you'll still see one of those three at the majority of our stops. You'll see me at some of the stops. But that's the other thing, that when we started this tour, one of the biggest draws is me coming and playing with the
Of
players.
course, of course.
But like I explained to Tony in the very beginning, is while the tour is my name, the tour needs to exist without me having to go to every stop. Like, I will go to stops periodically. I will show up at different stops at different points. I'll choose a partner every quarter or whatever, and choose and go to that stop, whatever fits the schedule. Um, but it was never designed for me to start going to every single stop. I never really want to go back to that, me being on the road constantly. So we've already got it to where several partners run the events. Like, we just had an event that, PokerOrg is wrapping up down in West Palm Beach. I didn't go to West Palm Beach. I never once stepped foot on the property. We met every single guarantee. Everybody had a blast. We blew most guarantees out of the water. So we are able to deliver to our partner players to the events, do what we say we're going to do, and make them happy, and the tour is a success. So that is what our ultimate goal is for us to have a tour that lives and breathes on its own, and we'll get stops. Well, I will come in and, do a meetup game, play the main event, or whatever that looks like. And we are moving in that direction. And I'm very positive that the tour is going to do very great things in the future. I don't know what the future holds in poker. The poker world is always changing. I mean, who knows? We could merge with another tour. We could take over a tour. We may stop doing the tour at some point. You never know what the future holds. But as of now, I'm very happy with the tournament that we're doing. Everybody's having fun. The growth is good. The people that are working for me are happy. I'm able to give flexibility to people. Again, having, it's rough. When I'm at home, I've got 4 other people that rely on me to, provide. But I have another family that I have to provide for out on the Moneymaker social up in Louisville, or the Moneymaker tour.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Moneymaker coffee. I've got employees now, which is a scary thing. It's been 2 years, and I know that almost all my employees would lay down on the tracks for me, which is a great feeling. But in return, I have to be willing to make sacrifices for them and do things that, again, so Tony, a good example, Tony wanting to travel less. Okay, well, that's fine. We'll figure out how it works and how we can make that happen. We don't just end the story here. We deviate and we make a plan, and we work together to figure it out. But I'll just be honest, it's tough, and it's a fun struggle, but it's still a struggle. Like, I'm at a point in my life where, like, my life is just, I could retire and just, like, do nothing, but
Right.
that's pretty boring and doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. I actually tried being retired for I kind of was retired during COVID. Like, during
Right.
COVID, like, I never left, never did anything. And now I enjoy the time at home, but I did enjoy when I got away once COVID ended. So I've learned I don't want to just be retired, but I also don't want to work real hard either. You as Helmuth already pointed out, we work hard enough doing these long days. So, when I'm down in Uruguay and I'm dealing with, ACR issues, Moneymaker Tour issues, Moneymaker Louisville issues, health issues. It was a very interesting week. And then I get to come back and talk with you for 3 hours. So,
Well,
um,
I appreciate your time. I hope the Moneymaker Tour comes to LA area. I'd love to play. I don't think you've been here yet.
we've talked with LA casinos. I know we've had discussions. Again, I don't, now it's, our discussions with them are going to change a little bit. What tour stops don't need a tournament director, what tournament stops need a tournament director, and
Right.
uh, we'll figure things out as we go.
Okay. Last thing, it's been 20 years. What keeps you going? What do you love the most about poker at this point in your career? What do you love about the game? Because you say, I just want to play for 15 minutes, and that gives me a little bit of a fix I really enjoy. What do you love most about the game, and why do you still keep going? I know you give so much back to the community, and I did say a lot of nice things because they meant them. But the bottom line is, what keeps you going? What do you love most about the game?
Well, I'm a competitive person. I've been, you talked about your karate, and I wrestled, I played soccer. I've always been a competitor. Um, I have to have those competitive juices flowing in some vein. Um, During COVID, I wanted to go back and fight MMA because I was kind of bored. I looked at potentially doing that. Then I realized I'm old as fuck, and that's probably not the best idea. Look like Mike Tyson out there. So poker is my way of fighting. It's my way of being competitive. And one of the great joys I have is picking up information that other people don't see, or getting my opponent to do what I want them to do without them knowing that they're doing it.
Hmm.
Um, you know, when someone tells me that um, there's a few things at a poker table that makes me happier than most. One, when I take someone's last dollar and they stand up and they shake my hand and tell me how much fun they had.
That's nice.
That's a win-win for both of us.
Yeah.
The other is when someone says that I'm the worst poker. Like, it was funny. We had a layover in Chicago, and on this last trip, and I'm sitting there, and this drunk guy to my left, um, he's sitting there. He's like, "Chris, you walked in here. My nipples got hard. Like, you are to me like the best ambassador for poker. You are an incredible. Just you're the best." But I will say you are probably the worst poker player I've ever seen in my entire life. You are really bad, and just obviously this guy's been beating me all night. So, and he's really enjoying the fact that he's crushing me, and I'm on the inside just smiling because um, I actually had another buddy with me that travels with me, and he was crushing the game. And they're like, "Yo, Chris, you're welcome back at any time. Just don't bring him." And my buddy's over here laughing because like we've been friends for 25 years, and he will never even sit at a poker game with me if we're uh, playing on a consistent basis. We just
Right.
got laid over in Chicago, so he's sitting at the same table. Usually, he will go sit at a different table than me because he just doesn't want to play with me because he just knows that I'm so much better than him. But so they're like, thinking he is just like the best player ever, and I'm the worst player ever. And it just makes me smile. I was just like, I know I'm bad, I'm terrible, and so yeah, I don't know why, but I think it's just awesome when people have these misconceptions about you, and um, that honestly, I try to cultivate. I want people to think I'm bad. I want people to not respect my game,
Yeah.
and I want people to have fun. So again, like uh, I can't tell you how many times it's probably happened 200 times would be my guess, where I've taken someone's last dollar in a cash game or busted them from a tournament, and they immediately stand up to shake my hand and say how much fun they had.
Yeah.
Um, I remember the first couple of times it happened, I thought it was really surreal. I was like, I just took all your money. How are you happy? But people genuinely have a good time playing poker with me. I When I play poker, I'm there to have fun. That's generally, I don't play a whole lot of high stakes. Like I don't
Right.
go to I've never really been a high stakes guy. I did go to Triton. I've been to two Tritons now, um, but it's not something I consistently go to. I think I'm going to go to one more. I've got to go back to Montenegro after winning an event and getting a
Right.
third and getting a 20th. I mean, I got to go back and defend. I think I played three events or four events. I played six events and I've cashed in four in final table two or three. So like my record in Tritons is maybe a little bit above EV,
Right.
above. I'm running a little pure there, but I do need to go back. I went back to Uruguay to defend my title there, which I did unsuccessfully. So I'm going to Montenegro to try to defend my title there as well.
Well, thank you for being such a great guest, and also for being a great representative for the game of poker. Just such a you have such a good heart for where you want to do in the game, and I appreciate your sincere answers. And the last thing we can do is pick on Jeff Platt a little bit. I don't know why you hate that guy so much, but other than that,
It's not that I hate Jeff Platt. Like he's not
I'm
a bad
kidding.
guy. I created a shirt that basically made him into Freddy Krueger and tried to sell him during the World Series of Poker. Like, if I didn't like you, I wouldn't make a shirt with your face on it.
I
So,
know I saw that.
um, the problem is for years, like he would always come up and talk to me, and then I would go bust. And so I think, I don't know if I was the original one that started that. I think between me and like maybe Sean Deeb, um, may have started the Platt curse,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of caught fire. Um, but I know I was ducking him for years. I wouldn't do an interview with him because I would be busting soon. Obviously the joke is, everybody busts the poker tournament except for one. So
Yeah.
it's, it might be Jeff Platt's doing, but probably not.
Well,
But
thank
just to be safe, I don't want to have to talk to him.
Stay away from Jeff. Well, thank you for your time today, and going through all that we did. In the car. You
Yeah,
took your
good luck summarizing this interview.